Today I want to introduce you to each of my mice individually by sharing their unique story and how they came to be in my care. They may be tiny, but they have absolutely huge personalities. So first up we have Billy, my ginger and white mouse. She was so scared when I first got her, and that is because I rescued her from really not very nice conditions at all. It looked like they were being kept outside in a really damp and dirty environment. They were handed to me in a wine box, and clearly they hadn't had much enrichment at all. So it took a really long time until she actually would even come near me, let alone crawl onto my arm. Originally she was called Bill, and that is because I was at first told that they were boys. So there was Bill and there was Ted. When I collected them, I quickly realised they weren't boys at all, they were girls, and unfortunately Ted died shortly afterwards from an ulcerated tumour that had been left untreated. I took her to the vets as quickly as I could, but unfortunately it was too far gone and she was in absolute agony. Next up we have Licorice. She is certainly the bossy one of the group. She's the black mouse sat in my hand, and actually it has taken me the best part of half a year to truly get her to feel safe to come and sit on my hand like this. So you're witnessing the very first moment she's sitting on my hand without any food present, which is absolutely huge. Licorice was one of a litter that I got from a breeder, and this was shortly before I decided that I was no longer going to get mice from breeders anymore. The primary reason being that I want to focus my attention on rescuing mice from situations that they need rescuing from. Crumble is the beige and white mouse that's crawling up my arm. She is ever so sweet natured. She's definitely one of the more gentle, more calm and affectionate mice of the group. She loves cuddles, and she's also pretty confident. Bramble came with Houdini, the black and white mouse that's just crawling behind my arm there. She's also got a little bit of tan on her, which is really cool. They actually were in reasonable living conditions. It was a couple who could no longer look after them, and again I found them on a classified ad site and went to collect them. And actually they had pretty good enrichment set up. The only thing that I would say is, number one, they were in a wire enclosure, which anyone that follows my channel knows I'm not a fan of. And although the enclosure was reasonably sized, it was up and down rather than horizontal, and horizontal is always better for mice because they have more floor space. Houdini is definitely the free spirit of the bunch. She prefers to be outside the enclosure or exploring other places more than inside the enclosure. And for this reason, I often do open the lid and just let her go for it. Whilst I'm there watching, give her some good free roam time. The story behind her is really funny because the day that I went to go and get her and Crumble, my stepson Caesar was sat on the back seat of the car whilst I was driving, and suddenly he said, "Mummy, Houdini is crawling up your coat." And I looked around, looked at the enclosure and said, "She's in the enclosure." And then a couple of minutes later, he said, "Houdini's crawling up your coat again." And what we realised she was doing was she was climbing out of the enclosure, squeezing herself through the bars, and then squeezing back in again. It was almost like a Toy Story moment, like doing it as soon as we weren't looking. So that was really, really funny. I think it's really important to learn to recognise each of their individual personalities and really try and cater to that. So if they're a free spirit, make sure you give them lots of free roam time. If they are shy, spend lots of time being patient with them, waiting for them to come to you. Give them lots of hiding spaces. It's about identifying what each individual mouse needs. Bramble was a little baby that I got from a classified ad site, and it was actually from someone who had a litter of mice unexpectedly, and yeah, so that's the story there. They were in perfectly good living conditions but just needed a home. She may be tiny, but she is definitely one of the most boisterous of all of my mice. She does like to nibble too. Coco is my eldest mouse. I actually rescued her from a pet store because she was 6 months old. She hadn't had a home, and so yeah, she had a home with me. I noticed that her tail was broken, and I have featured her before in a video called Never Pick a Mouse Up by Its Tail, and I'll link that down below so that you can hear about that story. Coco is very much like the mother of the group. She likes to look after everyone. When I introduce new mice to the group and, you know, they have a little squabble, she tends to be the one to step in and say, "Hey, that is enough." Bob is my male mouse. He is a rescue mouse from the RSPCA, and he is such a chilled out mouse, literally the most chilled out mouse I have ever met in my whole life. He is so adorable. And every day he comes and he licks my hand, like gives it little kisses. He is so incredibly sweet. And when I went and got him from the RSPCA, he is so well known at the RSPCA. They absolutely adored him. And people were actually sad that I was taking him away, even though they knew he was going to a loving home. They all said they were going to miss him. So yeah, a really little mouse with a really big, well-known personality.